It's May 1st, 2010. A young woman is running barefoot through a gated neighborhood on Long Island. She's screaming, banging on doors, begging strangers to let her in. Her name is Shannan Gilbert. She's 24 years old. She wanted to be a singer, even recorded some demos, but life didn't go her way, and she turned to escort work to get by. Tonight, she's terrified. One neighbor peeks out through a curtain. Another cracks their door. They see her, hair wild, eyes wide, barefoot in the cold. She's yelling the same thing over and over. They're trying to kill me. But by the time police arrive, she's gone. The only thing she left behind was a 21-minute 911 call. On that tape, Shannan's voice is chaotic. She whispers, then she shouts. She repeats the same phrase again and again. They're trying to kill me. In the background, you can hear men's voices. Calm, too calm. Her driver's voice cuts in, begging her to get back in the car, but she refuses. At one point, you hear her pounding on doors, begging, and then silence. Police searched the marsh that morning. Nothing. No phone. No clothes. No footprints. They write it off as a missing person. Some officers even say maybe she drowned, but her family doesn't buy it. They say Shannan was terrified of water. They insisted someone was chasing her. And here's where the story breaks wide open, because when police return months later, they still don't find Shannan. They find 4 other women buried in the sand. When investigators realized they weren't looking at one missing woman, but 4 separate murder victims, everything changed. These 4 women would become known as the Gilgo Four, and their stories tell us a lot about the kind of person this killer was hunting. The first was Melissa Barthelemy. She vanished in 2009. After she went missing, her family started receiving phone calls. At first, they hoped it was her, but when her younger sister answered, it wasn't Melissa. It was a man whispering terrible things. He taunted her. He mocked her family. The calls came from Manhattan payphones. They were traced, but the man was never caught. Imagine losing your sister and then hearing a stranger describe what he did to her, right into your ear. Next was Megan Waterman. She was 22 from Maine and a new mother. In June of 2010, she was last seen leaving a Holiday Inn in Hauppauge, New York. Surveillance showed her stepping out into the night, but she never came back. Her family said Megan was tough, independent, but she was also vulnerable, and whoever picked her up that night knew exactly what they were looking for. Then there was Amber Costello, 27 years old, from North Babylon. Neighbors remembered her as kind but struggling. She had fought addiction. In September of 2010, she left home after arranging to meet a client. Witnesses saw her climb into a dark Chevy Avalanche, but she never returned. Investigators later connected that same make and model of the vehicle to the man now accused of being the Long Island serial killer. Finally, Maureen Brainard Barnes, 25, from Connecticut, a single mother trying to support her kids. In July 2007, she took a train into Manhattan, planning to meet clients she found through Craigslist. It was supposed to be a quick trip, but she was never seen again. 4 women, similar ages, all escorts, all lured from the same conditions, all found in burlap, placed deliberately side by side along Gilgo Beach. This wasn't sloppy. This wasn't random. This was a predator with a hunting ground. And here's the detail that terrified investigators the most. Whoever killed these women left them just yards from the road, hidden in plain sight. It was almost like he wanted them to be found. And sure enough, when investigators widened their search beyond the Gilgo Four, the ground gave up even more secrets. Victims that stretched back years. Victims that didn't fit the same profile. Victims that raised a disturbing new question. Was there just one Long Island serial killer or more than one? After the discovery of the Gilgo Four, investigators widened their search and almost immediately, the death toll went up. Along Ocean Parkway and into neighboring areas, they uncovered 6 more sets of remains. One was a toddler, another was a man. Several were only partial skeletons. This wasn't just one kind of victim anymore. Whoever was using this coastline as a dumping ground wasn't following one pattern. For years, several of the victims remain unidentified. Investigators gave them nicknames: Peaches, Fire Island Jane Doe, and Baby Doe. It was all the public had. Anonymous names for anonymous remains. Decades passed, but then in 2023, new forensic genealogy cracked open one of the mysteries. Fire Island Jane Doe, also known as Jane Doe number 7, was finally identified as Karen Vergata. She had been missing since 1996, and in April 2025, another bombshell. Peaches was identified as Tanya Denise Jackson. The toddler found nearby, that was her daughter, Tatiana. Think about that. A mother and child missing for decades. Their remains hidden along the same stretch of land as the Gilgo Four. But here's the twist. Investigators now say Tanya and Tatiana may not be connected to Rex Heuermann, the man later arrested, which raises an even darker possibility. If they weren't his victims, then that means there was more than one predator using Long Island's coast as a dumping ground. As if things weren't bad enough, the Suffolk County Police Department was drowning in scandal. The police chief at the time, James Burke, would later be jailed for corruption and unrelated crimes. But the fallout damaged public trust. Many locals still believe Burke's misconduct slowed down the Lisk investigation. Families were left to wonder, was justice delayed because of incompetence, or because the truth was too ugly to face? By this point, there were at least 10 victims tied to Gilgo Beach and the surrounding areas. Some identified, some not. Some may be connected, some maybe not. And then, more than a decade after the first discovery, police finally made an arrest. A quiet suburban architect, a father, a husband, a man who lived just miles away from where the bodies were found. In July of 2023, more than a decade after the first bodies were found, police finally made an arrest. His name was Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architect from Massapequa Park. He lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, just miles away from Gilgo Beach. He had a wife, kids, and a reputation as a meticulous, boring professional. But inside his home, investigators say they found something very different. According to prosecutors, Heuermann kept a stash of over 200 firearms, multiple burner phones, and evidence linking him to the Gilgo Four. Hair samples allegedly matched to victims. Internet searches that prosecutors say revealed disturbing fantasies. And neighbors later admitted they were never surprised. They said he was creepy. One described him as the kind of guy you don't want to run into at night. Heuermann was charged with multiple murders, including Melissa, Megan, and Amber. Later, Maureen's case was added as well. Prosecutors now wanted to try at least 7 murders together in one case. The defense pushed back, saying that was unfair. The evidence, they argued, wasn't as strong for some victims. And just a few weeks ago, in September 2025, a New York judge made a landmark ruling. Advanced DNA evidence could be used in Heuermann's trial. This was the first time such technology was approved in a New York courtroom. Prosecutors believe this DNA may be the key to finally convicting the man they call the Long Island serial killer. But here's the problem. Not every victim is tied to Heuermann. Tanya and Tatiana, investigators say their deaths may not be related. Shannan Gilbert, her official cause of death is still undetermined. Some police say she drowned. Her family believes she was murdered. Independent experts point towards injuries consistent with strangulation. And several other victims along that stretch of coastline remain question marks, which means even if Rex Heuermann is convicted, the case may not be over, because the real question isn't just, did they catch him? The real question is, how many killers used Long Island as their dumping ground? Today, the case is heading toward trial. The earliest date, sometime in 2026. Families of the victims are still waiting. And as the legal battle drags on, the marsh at Gilgo Beach still sits there, silent, windswept, holding on to its secrets. So maybe they caught the Long Island serial killer, or maybe they only caught one man. And someone else is still out there. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode.